Do the trashy pulp novels of the world have anything to offer? Are bestsellers all they're hyped up to be? The Terrible Book Club explores whether or not you really can judge a book by its cover or its ridiculous synopsis. If you've ever seen a book and thought, ugh, who's reading this? We probably are.
Hello and welcome to episode 158 of the Terrible Book Club. I'm Chris, and this is Paris.
Hello.
This time we read Afterlife Love by Niles MacFlouer, published in 2003 by Ageless Wisdom Publishers Book 2 LLC. So that's... Listen, you guys know what's up already, right?
So I don't know if folks are aware, but you don't need to make a separate LLC when you write a second book. Just pro tip, just keep the same LLC. It's fine.
I mean, they do some real funny money business over here, let me tell you.
You don't need a fresh one. It's okay.
This was donated to the show by our friend Charlotte, who is a true scholar of terrible books. She wrote a thesis on Fabio. She is committed. She recommended this one for the show because, well, I think this review on the back of the book is a perfect explanation. This groundbreaking book is not only a powerful and moving romantic novel that entertains, it also teaches quite credibly about what life is like in other dimensions and why. Sure to be as an information source, again and again. Sure to be as an information source. The grammar here is a little weird, which makes me think that this bit was also written by the author. I don't think that that's real, but we'll see.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Charlotte. Charlotte is wonderful and found this book and gave it to me.
A real find, I gotta tell you.
This is like I said, this woman wrote a thesis on Fabio. That is not a joke. She is...
This is top-level academic terrible book find.
I think with this contribution to Terrible Book Club, she might actually become like a terrible book vicar. Like she's definitely rising up into Reblo's order. So,
Paris, what are we even doing here?
I don't know. This was, when we were complaining last week about, the wives, it was so bad. I would rather read The Wives 5 more times back to back again and again before I ever look at this book again.
Okay.
So terrible. Deeply, deeply awful.
So what are we doing here, Paris?
Well, if this is your first time listening to this show, what we do here at the Terrible Book Club is we read books that we assume will be bad based on their cover, title, summary, or some combination of the three. Sometimes, though, like today, we read books that our patrons, listeners, or friends recommend or donate to the show. So we do the opposite of what most people do in a bookstore or while they're browsing the internet. And usually this experiment results in a disappointing and hilarious time, but, once in a while we do actually end up liking or even loving the book. Content warnings today. Well, an additional, yeah, this book has broken me. Content warnings today, in addition to our usual barnyard language, today's episode includes discussion or mention of nearly every bad thing. We got cults, we've got sex, we've got dangerous levels of woo-woo, we've got racism, we've got... sexualization, misogyny. I mean,
the Holocaust is up in here.
Holocaust, sexual assault, 9/11. I mean, it's like any bad critiques, shitty libertarian ideas. It's just any bad idea, poor interpretation of something. It's all in here today. It is all here. So please. Take care of yourselves and be prepared or choose another episode.
10 or so minutes.
Let's see. All right, Chris, since you have the physical manifestation of this nightmare, could you please...
Not in the astral plane.
Could you please... Well, no, one of us would have to die to get it. We'd have to die to get it there, remember?
That's true. Okay. here is the back of the book summary. The author, who writes under the pen name Niles MacFlouer, has taught metaphysics for the last 2 decades. Just starting right off with what this guy is. He co-serves in the Ageless Wisdom Distributors Group, which published this book. In addition to over 350 articles concerning metaphysics and spirituality, he has also written a major consciousness-raising textbook about these subjects, entitled Life's Hidden Meaning. He has appeared on television, spoken on radio, presented hundreds of public lectures, and made guest appearances. Now he offers Afterlife Love as his first work of fiction. I guess that's about the author at the top of this before we actually get into anything. All right, there's another review in addition to the one that we read before, but the other review on the back of the book says, the first few chapters have great character development, and then, bam, the story shifts to gripping action and adventure that is unlike anything anyone has ever read. Yet it remains a magnificent love story throughout. I couldn't put it down and didn't want it to end. I have a very different opinion on that one. I wanted it to end at every single second.
Yeah.
Okay, then we had that other review we read before, and finally the actual summary of what you might find in here. What is life like after physical death? Within these pages, find yourself enthralled by an epic account that reveals in intimate detail the previously hidden answers to this question. This guy figured it out. Unmask the mysteries of our universe while enjoying a gripping chronicle of love and adventure. Afterlife Love is a unique expression of a deep and loving romance in which you can further recognize and understand the nature of the human soul and its relationship to all else. The author acknowledges that the story is mainly true. Some readers are asking, is it entirely true? Because this is a novel that is more credible than nonfiction might be. Be prepared for a life-changing story that teaches the mind as it captures the imagination. So right out the gate, some little obfuscation and confusion. Is it real? Is it not? Well, maybe you should ask yourself. Okay, so immediately, before we do anything else, I want you guys to know that the author himself is a character in this book.
Yes, and every time he appears, it's always like, Niles MacFlouer, the really awesome guy who is very nice and cool and smart and amazing, came in the like
knows things.
Yeah,
about the deep mysteries of life.
I love that we skipped the self-insert and just literally inserted themselves. Like, no smokes, no smoke screen. Just, yep, it's the author. He's here and he's cool. Okay.
But if you're saying, okay, so he's already doing the dance of like, well, it's a fiction, but like, is it really a fiction? Which should always just set off your bullshitometer here. And let me tell you guys, you want to calibrate that sensitivity on the bullshitometer pretty low here if you don't want it exploding in your face.
Yeah, we've got some serious spikes on the bullshitometer here.
All right. Paris, why don't you give us the characters and setting, because I'm going to read also the summary that we do to help you become somewhat tethered to reality here, which is a losing proposition at the outset over here. But since you wrote it, I'm going to read it. I'm going to have you just tell us about the characters and setting here.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone should just embrace the fact that this book is trying to untether us from reality and tether us to the etheric and astral plane. So you know what? Just come along with us. Just let yourself become untethered. That is the best way to enjoy this.
Go into your fourth sacrum in your spine and travel to the terrible astral dimension, which I guess would be like the 8th one, according to this guy.
You know what? If you have mind-altering substances at your disposal, now is the time. Now is the time. All right. So our characters and setting, as we just mentioned, the author Niles MacFlouer, is in this, and he is always a very cool guy. He just shows up sometimes to be like, yes, my son, you are on the path. I am very cool. Goodbye. Please continue to give my cult money. Thank you. That's kind of it. Our main characters, though, who we follow throughout the book, the main character is Shane, and then there's Rebecca. This created a lot of turmoil for Chris, as his girlfriend is Rebecca and his boss is Shane. So this book was a fun mental exercise of thinking about his
real
boss.
Cool stuff for me personally. Don't you love it when books do that sometimes, where it's just like, oh, it's these two people that I'm kind of close to and I know in real life, so my brain is always going to somewhat self-insert them. I understand other people can be named Shane and Rebecca. Let's be clear here. It's just, the brain likes to do that sometimes. When I think of a Rebecca, I think of the one that I'm dating.
Yeah, and so Chris had the distinct pleasure of imagining his boss stealing his girl throughout this whole book and chasing her in the afterlife. Anyway, there are some other characters, but frankly, none of it matters. The only character who has any bearing on the story is Shane's friend, who convinces him at the beginning to go to the book club lecture thing where he meets Rebecca. And after that, honestly, that's it. You just have to worry about these two. So, I mean,
his grandma pops up in the astral realm.
There's so many characters. There's dogs and bunnies that get named. It's not
Flim
worth.
The dog isn't. It's just not worth it, guys. It's not what the issue is here. If we were going to that level of detail, Paris and I would be recording here until next week. So we gotta cut to the chase.
So I actually didn't intend for the summary to be the summary, but we kind of realized that that was gonna have to be it. What I was doing was just creating a very basic outline and summary of each notable part of the book, because I knew that it was just quickly going to become quicksand, on the page. So I was just trying to put some stability in there, give us a guide, and now this is the summary that poor Chris has to read. So this is kind of these are the most notable moments and ideas in the book.
Sure. The beats. Okay.
Yeah,
so here we go, guys. Okay.
Okay. Stabilize yourself, Chris. You gotta do some deep breathing.
Strapping in here. All right. Shane's friend convinces him to go to a New Age talk by the author, where he meets Rebecca, and she immediately ensnares him into her religious pyramid scheme, house flipping, and jerk-off washcloth business with sex. Okay, it's a foot-shaped washcloth. We'll get into that. Just hold on.
There's also a dinosaur one.
Listen, we gotta get going here, Paris. Through a variety of classic cult and pyramid scheme tactics, Rebecca continues to convince Shane until he is also teaching the religion and engaging in business to give more money to the religious org. The teachings amount to focus less on material goals and focus more on doing good for others, which is just basic Christianity and pretty much all the other religions that, have people signing up for them. Can't distinguish what's special about this. I mean, I suppose the whole astral realm travel thing. They get married and go on a honeymoon, then Rebecca dies in a car accident, and Shane becomes obsessed with finding her through astral travel, since this is promised by this ageless wisdom thing that Niles MacFlouer has going on. There are 8 astral subplanes, with the 8th and lowest being evil, and each progressively higher level being less evil and more temporally askew from our terrestrial human experience of time. There's a lot of math in here about, I spent 4 hours in there, which equals to 1 hour of physical plane time.
Yeah, the temporal math was not useful. Thank you. Please don't.
Didn't help.
No.
After barely trying, Shane gets to the astral plane, and a nice lady named Susan, who happens to know Rebecca, takes him to Tamonia, an astral city that is suspiciously just like a regular-ass American city. Of course, he is once again tricked with sex and cute baby bunnies by Susan, who turns out to be an energy vampire. Since he never learns, he is tricked a 3rd time by Marta, who leads him into an astral gang rape where dogs hold him down. The cult promises to help him with his astral travel only if he works 30 hours a week for them and studies Niles MacFleur's book.
Sorry, I can't hold it together. I wrote this.
It's fine. No use. No use.
Sorry.
Shane gets tricked by sex. Tally is at 4 now on the 6th plane by some lady named Dawn. Niles tells Shane to change his motives to be with Rebecca again, from horny to spiritual and virtuous, or he will fail and hurt both of their souls, because doing stuff selfishly, like wanting to see your dead wife, impacts your ability to travel to different higher astral subplanes. Shane tries to be less horny and talks to his oversoul/solar angel. He continues his journey through the astral subplanes until he reaches the 5th plane, which is him meeting his friend who died as a teenager and finding out about the thought police and meeting a dog friend, Flim. He begins teaching on this plane, and Rebecca joins him. He thwarts a 5th attempt to sex trap him by Elaine, an Israeli woman who was murdered by a Palestinian terrorist, because of course we gotta bring that up. 4th plane is where Shane's grandma and grandpa live in a mansion with cool beds and who happen to know Rebecca. Of course, She appears, and she and Shane go to Spirit Station, which is like the hotel where they go to work in teams to communicate with mediums on the physical plane. He does a good job, so finally he can have astral sex with Rebecca. Their shirts fuck. Yes. Yes. Then so do they. Then they fuck while ice dancing and go to a cave where they fuck horny mushrooms. Afterwards, they return to Shane's grandparents to meet their pets and then help them reconcile because they just can't stop fucking. They immediately go to the intimacy and after this to stay in a room full of sex toys and a tentacle hot tub. Alright, almost done. Shane tries to go to the third plane, but he is pulled to the fourth plane because Rebecca is there and says they must rescue Dawn on the sixth plane because she is being held as a sex slave. To be clear, Rebecca is hanging out on like the first or second plane most of the time because she's so astrally powered up. Yeah. And she's only teaching on the other planes because that's like your duty as an ageless wisdom distributor. So the cult even follows you into the afterlife.
Yep.
So have fun with that. Anyway, Shane seeks counsel and help from the ageless wisdom group in reality and then returns to the astral world to find Rebecca and Dawn being raped, mean dogs, and an evil monster. He rescues them and himself by teaching, and then his grandma shows up. Richard also helps. A few days later, he gets to the third plane and is greeted by Harry, a man who is at least partly black. We learn that diseases and conditions are just karma from previous lives where you were an asshole. Shane meets an astral Karen who is a G-MILF DTF. Grandma, I like to fuck, who is down to fuck, for those of you who are really out of touch. And Harry swoops in on that while Shane and Rebecca have floating river sex. A voyeur dog compliments their sex, and then they go back to the fourth plane with Harry and Karen. After some teaching about energy rays, we go back to the fifth plane. Fifth plane is pissed because Shane stole a dog from them. That's Flynn. But Rebecca uses a sick new spell and saves them. They realize they must transfer the author's book to heaven, so they mind meld a few times while Shane reads it. Once that's done, Shane dies. The author goes on a tour of the planes, where of course everyone loves his book, and everybody clapped the end.
Sorry, I really
Thank you,
couldn't hold it
Paris,
together
for that. That's fine. Listen, there's no holding it together here anymore, okay? We're all loose goose in the astral plane, in whatever ray of creative thought that we're enjoined in. Paris, there's so many just like bullshit explanations that all the time you're going like, what? Huh?
Yeah.
And even in the book, the author is like, I know that's confusing. Motherfucker, that doesn't help if you're just like, I know that don't make sense. Read it again until it does.
Yeah, that seems to be their strategy in quote unquote studying his books is like, just keep reading the passages until you make them make sense to you in your brain.
Your brain will just give up and just try to force something in there and just go with that, I guess.
So, I was trying to figure out what I could say is good about this book. I mean, I guess
there is nothing. The grammar is bad. The way the dialogue is done is bad. The explanations are bad. The content is bad. And
the purpose of the book is quite bad. Yeah, I mean, the only, like, we're talking like, at the tiniest little sliver is just that, hey, maybe don't think about yourself all the time and try to think about other people instead and like do things to better the world. That's all I got. Because even that idea,
the general idea,
even that idea,
do good for others.
But even that just gets subsumed by the cult because it's always like do good for others, but it's always people who are also in the cult. It's never like do good stuff for your mom or, you know, like your boss. It's always like do better stuff for other people who also serve, you know, in ageless wisdom. So yeah, I think this might be the first time in a while we have absolutely nothing good to say about this. It's really just like this book is just like an Ouroboros of suffering. I know I've said that before, but its purpose is to be a 350 plus page ad for the author's other books and workshops, and ultimately what seems like some kind of religious cult, or, you know, if you don't like the word cult, religion, whatever.
He likes
I don't-
spiritual group. There's that page
Yeah.
where he's like, oh, cults, they make people do things for selfish reasons, but spiritual groups like Ageless Wisdom make you do things for the betterment of others, which is just an
Yeah.
obfuscation of you're still working for Niles and making him money. Because, boy, there's like a property business on the side and the foot jerk-off washcloths as well.
Yeah.
So it's pretty clear what you're serving, I think, Niles.
I guess I don't quite understand this book, because if you're advertising for something, if you're trying to recruit people into something, whether it's to buy your product or to be in your cult or join your club or whatever, making them read a 365 page book is like, the bar is so high. Who would have enough time to invest in this and be willing enough to read all of it when it's so poorly written and constructed, and then still be convinced by it? Like, I don't quite get it.
I do think I have a purpose here as to what is really happening. Twofold. Firstly, Niles thinks the best way to teach things is to just say the thing.
Yes.
And then that is how you get the idea into the other person's brain for them to understand. If they don't understand that thing, you pretty much just say it again. Really, for him, the only component that goes into someone learning something is you saying the words that for how you think it. Which, as a teacher of some type here, I can just unequivocally say that's the worst way to teach, is to just info dump. It doesn't work to anyone's benefit to just say a bunch of shit and hope that the other person puts it together the exact same way that you put it together. This book is a fascinating example of, a system that some other human brain thought up and makes sense to them, but is absolutely baffling to any outsider. I'm sure anyone that's dealt with, user interface stuff with software has experienced this, or, teaching any sort of system out there, whether it's music theory or, color theory for painting, or just how a piece of software works to the other people in your organization, right? It's like there's this system that another brain thought up, and now someone else has to learn it because you're trying to sell your foot washcloths and make that person accept that that's what they should be doing with their life. I would like to read a passage from this book. It's about page 275, which I know is deep in, but I assure you that the context that you would have gotten from the other 270 pages did not help me.
Right.
So I don't think it'll help any listener here. And I just want to read this as a way to set up what we have been dealing with here. And of course, we'll read other passages as well as we go along. But I thought this was a perfect little nugget of what you're trying to deal with when you read this.
Yeah.
It's on page 275. Harry asked, "Please go on explaining this third aspect of God's mind, Rebecca. When the third aspect of God's mind is completely intelligent in its activity or action, then all of life that it affects grows the maximum amount possible for that life as more of a part of God or of its creator. This creates only light or thought at the speed of God's mind within the life. It joins the space and time within the life and all other life it shares activity with. This causes the space to become light at that speed of thought. It also causes time to stop and rejoin with space, taking no time to occur between any two parts of life activities or actions. Then all three aspects of God's mind are joined as they are in God at that point in God's development within and between or among the life. Each fully intelligent activity both grows the mind of God from its original size, and it creatively changes it in unique ways as well," Rebecca concluded.
Sure.
Now, them some words, Paris. Paris, explain to me, what did I just say?
I don't know. I can't explain any. I mean, it just sounded like words were strung together in a facsimile of sentences, but that didn't actually mean anything.
My favorite part is, when the third aspect of God's mind is completely intelligent in its activity or action, then all of life that it affects grows the maximum amount possible for that life as more of a part of God or its creator. That's the first sentence of an explanation that I'm supposed to take something out of?
Yeah,
Even the grammar. Okay. I wanted to really set the scene here before we get into what was bad here at Paris. So I'm going to step back from talking a lot. I know I talked a whole lot at the top of this, but I really wanted everyone to have sufficient context before we start diving in deeper.
Yeah, I mean, I just... So, I mean, if it hasn't been obvious yet, we didn't have anything good to say about this. We are in the things that were bad section. And yeah, the biggest thing about this that's bad is it's all about trying to, convince people to join this cult. And I was apprehensive about, saying, oh, it's definitely a cult, but I think it satisfies all the criteria. I could be a little off, but I think it's like you have to have most of the time you have like a charismatic leader, some kind of authoritarian leader, which in this case I guess would be Niles. You have, isolation, right? Because all they do is spend time with other people in the cult. They're even trying to buy a compound. Like that's the property stuff on the side.
That's the real
Chris was
classic
talking about.
cult shit. I gotta say,
yeah.
if you're buying a compound.
Yeah. So, and they're all intertwined in business together. Like they all end up either quitting their jobs or like in the case of quote unquote Shane, who is totally real, he gets fired from his job and then he joins the cult business, which is like largely flipping houses. I think that's what Rebecca was doing anyway.
That seems to be the major source of income, although early on they're talking about like Rebecca and Shane are just kind of talking about going into business, just the two of them, selling Rebecca's foot washcloths. Now,
the washcloths, man, so confusing.
They are foot-shaped washcloths. I'm not sure from what angle.
Wait, no, they're not.
Cross-section.
Are they foot-shaped?
Yes, they are foot-shaped, Paris. It specifically says foot-shaped.
Okay, well, I want to remind you about how there is a sentence talking about how there's a dino-shaped washcloth, like a dinosaur one, and then he immediately gets a hand job with the dinosaur washcloth. That yes. happens. Just so everyone knows, that's a really important.
My favorite thing is that they keep bringing up this, like, this is the first stage of the business Rebecca and Shane going into together because, like, he lost his job or whatever. But it starts with the washcloths, but it keeps bringing up the washcloth business later on, and it keeps going. And we were selling the foot washcloths as well as other things. Now, the dino washcloths get mentioned, but I desperately need to know what is under that umbrella of other things, because your entire business cannot simply be foot and dinosaur washcloths. What is the other things?
Yeah, it's probably just something easy, like soap is pretty easy to make, or like candles or whatever. Anyway, back to cult stuff. So I think it satisfies like isolation, having a leader, like charismatic leader. And being exclusive to like. I didn't get the sense that they thought that anyone else's forms of belief were valid. I mean, it didn't directly say that, but like they spend all this time literally just reading the books of this guy, Niles MacFlouer, and trying to like meditate themselves into the astral plane. So I don't know, they didn't really mention any other religions, but I didn't get the sense that they would be open to that.
I mean, they mentioned capital G God. The word Buddhic is used a lot. For me, this is the case of like, oh, it just so happens that this one guy figured out the truth of everything, and it's got a little bit of every religion. That's how you know it's really true. It's like one of those things.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the woo-woo kitchen sink, right? You just throw in all the woo-woo spices you got left and stir it up, and there you go.
Little chi, little karma, little sacrum centers, and a little God, capital G, a little Buddha in there.
Yeah, you got the whole, like, you're not allowed to... I don't think, like, in the book, there's a lot of, like, oh, we have all this open dialogue, but they don't. They're still just talking in circles around each other about the books that Niles wrote. Like, they're not using any sort of critical thinking.
It takes everyone one conversation to, like, have a breakthrough, right? Like, it's not like it really takes, like, any crazy study. They're just sitting there and going, like, oh, yeah, that thing. And clearly it's just Niles spilling his idea out in what he thinks is a fictionalized novel format in comparison to his other book, Life's Hidden Meaning, which is a 750-page book of him just spitting the shit out in, like, straight info dump form with charts and shit, which is mentioned in this book. And I saw a couple pages of the other one, and boy, oh boy, it's just somehow more expanded with more bullshit.
I don't know. I guess we didn't see... like any threats made to people. But of course, this is like a propaganda book. But I'm sure the people, again, if any of this is even real, this might just be Niles like inflating his own sense of, you know, self and purpose by saying, oh yeah, I have all these followers, when like in reality none of this is true. Like, I don't even think Shane and Rebecca are real. You know, there's all that too.
Heavens, Paris. Someone lied about that.
You know, we don't see any like threats to people or people being worried about not being included in the group. But it seems pretty clear to me that those sentiments are there beneath the surface, because I don't think that Shane would be stoked, you know, if he wasn't allowed to come to group talk or whatever. Yeah. Anyway, it's a fucking cult. Moving on. It's got all the hallmarks of cult bullshit other than satisfying the basic criteria. It's like everyone gives all their money to the cult, and like Shane is like, oh, it's so much better having less money. I love having less money, and like giving everything
focus
to the
less
cult.
on material goods. Like, you know, that's not what life is about. Life is about selling these feet washcloths.
Life is about
flipping
focusing.
houses.
Life is about focusing all the material goods on the cult. Not you. Just give it all to the cult. Yeah, I don't know. I think this is just going to be us going through a bunch of insane things that happen in the book, and that's kind of it.
Listen, guys, there's nothing else to be said here. I gave you a passage there. We'll read some other stuff in here. I think it'll become fairly clear what we were dealing with here.
You know, there's a scene where Shane and Rebecca have sex, and it's so great that they levitate to the roof while fucing. Like, I don't know.
Let's go to that one. I got the book over here.
It's just like, well, you're not going to convince me that this happened, folks. Sorry, it's not happening.
So here's page 79 with a little fun. Here's some astral sex description for you guys in case you were wondering what's going on here. We went back to the hotel room. Craig was staying with a couple who had attended the day's event. Rebecca and I had decided to stay in a beautiful, more remote place in the hills. We undressed each other and sat facing each other, eyes fixed. We both spoke and thought to each other endearing words. I told her, through thought, how I appreciated all of her ways of serving and being a soul. I thought through some of these ways and how they affected me and others. Then she, somewhat more creatively, did something similar with me. In her thoughts, she included future scenarios of both of us creating service in new ways. She is so artistically virtuous. She moved to sit on top of me, our physical bodies responding to each other with relaxed precision and assurance. As we further connected our other three bodies, we began to elevate several feet above the floor in our etheric bodies. We then made love for about 6 physical subplane hours, or about 8 hours of experiential time as we floated and gently turned first around the room, and then we moved through the roof to the outside. Once outside, we made love, just above the treetops. The etheric air was cool, but not nearly as chilly to us as its physical component. Bro, I don't care how much you like the sex, but 6 to 8 hours is a shift at work, bro. I gotta take a break. I gotta eat. Where's my lunch break in the middle of this?
Yeah, Arizona state law requires you have to take at least a 30-minute lunch break for that shift.
For your 6-hour astral sex session. By the way, here's a little section about how they feel after some other sex that occurred earlier. In our intuitional or Buddhic bodies, the light energy did not remain, but joined with all others who were also in mutual service. We felt the senses of the body joining with the fortunate ones who have found the joy and bliss of spiritual service. As our thoughts, love, and sensuality intertwined together like a masterpiece of sculpture, we reached a new kind of climax. I found come to. I as her and she as me sustained a climax for about 15 minutes, a real guess on my part. Time seemed all but stopped as we truly became one for this blissful culmination. Oh, my Rebecca, I thought, my angel, this world is so fortunate for your presence. She replied, having heard each word in her mind in a whispered voice, Shane, you have exceeded the man of my dreams and my memory. This fortune we have needs to be shared so that others may finally understand what awaits them beyond their illusions and fears.
Yeah, so it's a lot of this where it's really hard to believe because, you know, you have two people who... Well, no, I'm explaining that, like, I understand that some people have sometimes, you know, like, meditate to a certain point or whatever, take like peyote or whatever and, like, see things and experience things that are, you know, beyond kind of our normal way of thinking or comprehending our experience. But these are people who are supposedly not on any psychotropic drugs. They didn't do anything other than know each other for like 2 weeks and look at each other in a room. Like, I don't understand. How are you getting from like regular sex to like we were floating above the building? Like, how did that happen?
How did you get to come to? I don't understand how to charge up my astral energy enough to get to come to.
Well, and that's the other thing. Like, how is this book supposed to be an instructional book that you come to again and again when it doesn't instruct you in anything? You don't learn anything. People are just saying, yeah, I did this happened, but there's no explanation.
Right, he just achieves the astral plane stuff. He says, oh, I went through my fifth sacrum or something. But but how, bro? He doesn't even talk about how to set the scene or like, turn some lights off, put some candles on, focus on this. Nothing like that. Nope.
Oh, and then, you have the very critical 1.5-page car deal.
Okay, so this is this was the page that actually made me some of the angriest in the book. There's just a page in here where Craig and Shane are talking about like Shane needs a new car because he had to sell his old one, and then Craig is like, "Oh, well, I found this deal on a Saturn. It's got 56,000 miles on it." And Shane's like, "Oh, is like the AC working?" Craig's like, "No, you could probably need to spend $600 to bring it up." And Shane's like, "Oh, well, what if I gave you like $3,800 for it?" And Craig is like, "Oh, well, maybe if I give you my old car." And I'm like, "Why the fuck do I care about your fucking used car deal? I'm trying to get into this cult, guys. I'm trying to reach my astral fifth plane to come to or whatever. Is this on the cult test? Is there going to be a problem with like if Craig approaches you with a used Saturn for $3,800 that has 56,000 miles on it? Which do you choose to trade him your 30-foot washcloths for it, or is there a better way to serve in the astral? Like what?" The fuck?
That was terrible. There's a lot of this in the book where it's just like, and then this happened, and then we went here, and we talked about this, and then I got fired, and then I had to, there's no artistry to explaining any of this. There's even a point, I forget if it's in the foreword of the book, there's somewhere in the book the author says like, I don't know if I'll do a good job writing fiction. It's like, yeah. I'm sure none of your cult followers will tell you that you're not good at it, but yeah, your first inclination was correct. So it's just a lot of that. So we got, we forgot to tell people when in time this was happening. This is the year 1999, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got Shane meets Rebecca. They fall in love or whatever. He gets really invested in the cult. He gets fired from his job at presumably Apple, or I don't know. They keep
doing this thing where they write an M and then a bunch of dashes to represent what company Shane worked for. There's some of this like, I guess, obfuscating of names in the name of like safety of others. I thought it was fiction, bro. But Shane's talking about how he's making Mac computer chips all the time. He just says Mac all the time, but he's working for M Dash, which I guess is Macintosh, but that's not the company name. It's Apple. So,
well, yeah, I guess it could have been some other company that started with an M, but it was kind of, it's like another one of those little
Niles
things.
think the company name is Macintosh.
Yeah, it's possible. In any case, gets fired, decides to go into like jerk off foot washcloth business and flipping houses with Rebecca. Gives all of his time to the cult. All of his friends are in the cult. No family mentioned, no other friends, just all about ageless wisdom. They have a bunch of sex. Rebecca dies in a car accident, and Niles, I want to say Niles, Shane senses it happening and can like see it in his mind as it's happening because of course somehow they have this powerful psychic connection.
Paris, if you sell enough foot cloths, you can fucking astrally connect with anyone. Let me tell you, you just got to hit the 2,000 mark. So if you just buy 4,000 from me, you can have other people sell the foot washcloths, and you'll reach your astral connection with your partner that much quicker.
That actually, that's a good point. I'm not selling enough jerk off washcloths with my feet.
So you have to do it with your foot too.
Yes,
that enhances the astral because you're not being selfish by using your hands.
Correct. I am doing it the hardest and least pleasurable way possible. Therefore, I am ascending. In any case, Shane's first thought, oh no, Rebecca is dead. I need to find her to fuck her in the astral plane. Like, that's his only...
You don't understand.
He is so obsessed with finding her again to have sex with her specifically. And he even talks about like how this is a struggle for him. And Niles is like, yeah, man, maybe be less horny about it. Like, you know,
even the cult leader guy is like, maybe just like, we're trying to do this like unselfishly, man. That was the whole point of this. But I guess if it was like that good, then sure.
Yeah, and then the entire rest of the book is just a romp through the astral planes. Like, nothing else happens in the real world that's of any consequence. And it just reads like, I don't know, a 7-year-old writing a story for school. Like, it's just...
It reads like a toddler DM's first, like, campaign homebrew arc that they've done. Especially when you have shit like the technology city Technosia. Up in here. It took me less than 3 seconds to come up with that, and I'm just rolling with it because the players are staring at me, and I didn't come up with the technology city name for my planning session. So, fuck.
Yeah, well, the thing that confuses me the most is the idea that, like, we would, you know, let's say you do go to the etheric realm and then the astral planes. I guess those are separate, apparently. Why would they be based on things in your white middle to upper class American modern experience? Why would they be like that? Why would it have like a technology city with like flip phones and then, you know, grandma's got a cool new Tempur-Pedic in the 4th plane or whatever? Like, it just, and I get that like some people might explain that away as, oh, well, you know, your brain is just trying to interpret things and process the unknown with the familiar, but this seems so lame. I can't get on board with that. It just doesn't make any sense. Why do we get jobs in heaven? Who goes to heaven and wants
my bills? If I had a job in heaven. I still gotta go to work.
Why wasn't I
death
just
would be
evil?
freeing. Yeah, the evil stuff sounds more fun, to be honest.
Yeah, if you're on the evil ones, you just get to like run around and like attack people and there's no consequences. It's like, I mean, I don't think I would enjoy that, but I don't know, it sounds better than having a fucking job in heaven. Maybe dying and being like, oh, finally a sweet release. And then it's like, oh, report to the fucking job office. We gotta assign you a job.
Some ageless wisdom. We're selling the foot washcloths up here too, man. Turns out people still got feet.
And then it's just endless work for all of time. I mean, I would at that point try to do the most evil shit to get kicked out of heaven because I don't want to work for an eternity. Oh.
Well, no, you see, Paris Ageless Wisdom, they're serving for the greater good of making sure even the astral realm knows what's going on here. And, like, my favorite part is when they fight the monster by teaching it. Shane is like, oh, I just gotta teach at it.
Here's the thing. Their whole mechanism for developing their ability to, you know, move about in the etheric and astral planes and how they fight things is by proselytizing. They say teaching, but it's really just spouting whatever their bullshit is. And I don't understand. There's so much of this that does not work.
Here's how it works, Paris. Okay, you're up in astral subplane 5, and there's a monster attacking you, and he's going, stab, bite, crunch, kill. And you start going, well, you see, actually, the way you're reacting on this 5th astral subplane is not really what you want, because if you wanted to, like, get in touch with the 6th cosmic ray as a subfusion of yourself with time and space, then you will have to meditate with us as we teach to you, and you're able to merge the creative part of God's will to get onto the 2nd astral as before subplane. And then the monster is just like, okay, fine, I'll go. I'll go. I'm sorry.
Maybe that's the secret. It's so confusing that evil can't get to you. Is that the point? Like, you can't. Like you said, the other notable thing is that everyone they interact with, whether in the, you know, physical plane or in the astral one, it just takes a conversation with like a few sentences or a couple paragraphs and they're converted, you know, or they reach a higher level of consciousness. And it just seems like it would require so much more work than that. I don't get it.
No, it's really easy to teach people, Paris. I have the words, and when you hear the words, you get the idea. And if you don't, you just got to keep reading the words again or hearing the words again. That is how you teach things.
There's also a lot of just really nefarious stuff just kind of slid in here, and like there's little thin layers of, like a croissant with butter. There's a lot of layers, and some of them are maybe burnt because, I don't know, you did it wrong. There's this concept of using rape as just like, a bad thing that happens, but then people who are assaulted just get over it immediately.
There's like spirit damage, but like to their personality, that you don't really get anything of them working through it. The way you work through it is you go find them in the astral plane and you send them your better energy. And then all the trauma of that experience is gone because your better energy cleared up their soul juice to be better.
Yeah.
It doesn't have glamours.
Yeah.
Glamours are a bad thing somehow.
Glamours are illusions that they're false illusions. Like being gay is an illusion, by the way.
I see. Of course.
Can't be gay. There's like a lot of weird libertarian ideas about, the overt ones are the thought police. And then in that chapter, there's like, everyone should just know better. We don't need laws. Like we don't need these.
If
we don't
everyone
need
just
laws.
acted good, then we wouldn't need laws. Oh, fuck. That's a spiritual breakthrough. You telling me that if everyone just acted right, then we wouldn't need all these regulations?
Yeah, and they're
Shit,
like,
why
well,
don't
the
we
higher planes.
Fuck, Paris. I'll just tell everyone to act good.
Mm-hmm.
We should do that, Paris. Hey, everyone listening, just be good.
There's a lot of demonizing
just be good.
Yeah, just be good. A lot of demonizing of like people who are drug abusers and it says people who abuse drugs and who are possessed by quote unquote, I don't know, demons maybe. They don't sleep. That's what this author thinks. They think that if you use drugs,
why don't we
don't
do
sleep.
the actual explanation since we have the page here in the notes here? Yes, that's correct. Through use of illicit drugs and or being possessed or other factors, some people have their webs partly or more destroyed. If the etheric and astral web is damaged, their brains become connected even when they are conscious. If they are selfish, which they often are to a greater extent than most, then they start to damage both brains. This damage prevents correct storage of information from the senses, causes poor memory, and most importantly, lower levels of thought, with the personality unable to accurately synthesize information into knowledge. These same people become prone to attacks while asleep and dreaming in the two lowest astral subplanes. They also tend to dream there more often than most people do because they are so selfish. And dreams, in part, help the energy in the bodies to repair them and help some of these darker energies to be used up. These energies follow the thought in the dreams, which are often composed of selfish or retained energies. Yeah, I understood that, Paris.
Sure.
I always love when I read these like energy and like spiritual things, the idea of like raised consciousness. Well, what are you doing to your consciousness? Well, it go up. My conscious go up, and therefore better because up better. Don't you want an up raised conscious?
It's truly confusing. I think, Chris,
you don't want a lower consciousness.
I think your explanation of this book is okay. So I said it was like a 365-page ad for a cult, and your description is also good.
It's because it's an ocean of bullshit, right? You're like thrown into the deep end of an ocean of bullshit, and every one of these passages that we're reading is just like a new river sectioning off from the main shit ocean into an entirely new land of bullshit that you never even thought could exist because the words barely make sense to you.
Just tributaries of awfulness.
Just every single time I could flip to a random page in this book. Yep. Let's do that experiment. Can you tell I'm upset? By the way, can you tell I'm upset?
Page 252. I have a note that says, "The fuck is happening?"
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know
what
that
is.
Page
252. Harry asked, Karen, how long have you lived here? I have lived in Charm Village for about 15 years. I first moved in with a man who lives about 10 miles from here. He liked sex a lot, and I found that to my liking. But he was rude and too coarse for me, so I moved out after 2 years and then into this small house that had been abandoned. I fixed it up and have lived here since. Do you want to find a mate still? I asked. What I want is a more meaningful life, one in which what I do matters to not just a man I sleep with, but to the universe, or all. I am probably just too senseless to be much of a good to anyone, except as a pretty decent bed partner. Then Harry said inappropriately, I thought, I think you are pretty hot, Karen. Oh, you do? Do you like experience then? Actually, I liked mixed-raced, very attractive women like yourself. You are partly of Latin descent with some... I am Irish and Hispanic. My mother was Irish. That's a very interesting combination, and sexy too. There were still many parts of Harry I didn't know yet. Sorry, Shane, my directness with Karen is embarrassing you. I did not notice, Karen said. Shane, are you sexually repressed? Me? I don't think so. Although as far as my sexuality goes, I am still finding out more about myself. Karen, could you answer a couple of questions I have about this part of the third astral subworld? If I can, go ahead. She took off her shoes and started to rub Harry's leg with her foot. I'm just going to stop there before we get into more foot stuff. Because,
there's all this sex stuff, and a lot of this book also suffers from that whole, I need details, therefore I'm going to do time calculations and tell you how many miles away something is in the astral plane. Why would the astral plane have miles? Why would there be villages? I can't understand this.
Okay, I flipped open to another random page here in the book, and by providence, Turley blows justice. I found a page that actually mentions perhaps the stupidest thing I've read in any book we've ever read.
I don't know, Chris. Which one is it?
Wow, I've got them too and never knew they were there. Now, guys, I said, where is it Rebecca was last seen? Oh yeah, it was over at the Goblows. What are the Goblows? That's one of the places we party at, Josh said. Come on, Shane, we'll take you there. When we arrived, there were people all around in a nightclub atmosphere with all kinds of different interior designs. A woman very quickly wrapped her body around mine and was dancing quite suggestively while I tried to untangle myself from her. I said, please, I am not interested in you or dancing. She seemed almost immediately distraught by my straightforward statement. I'm sorry if I was rude to you, I said, but you did intrude on me. I did no such thing. This is Goblows, and I broke no rules here, but you did. What are those rules? People come here for close contact, and as long as our bodies are a mix match, either of us can go. And let me see, if they aren't a mix and match, we blow, I said. She laughed. It's mix and match, yes, that's right. So our bodies mix match? Uh-huh. What or how can you tell? So they're in a nightclub called Goblows.
In the astral plane on the, what was it, the seventh plane?
I don't care. I don't give a fuck, Paris. Okay, so it's called Goblows because if you mix match, you go, but if you don't mix match, you blow.
I would assume that by going you mean blowing, so that's extra confusing to me.
So when I read Goblows and they explained it there, I shit my brain out of my body and it's directly into astral hell as far as I'm concerned. My consciousness was lowered to such a degree that I flew out the bottom of the earth and into space. And I am still traveling right now. I feel like I'm here, Paris, but I've been in space for 59 million astral years because I'm on subplane -5 with cosmic ray 2.
You know what? This brings to mind another important element of this book in that Shane just gets to go, oh, oopsie, my dick fell into a lady on the astral plane 6 times? And his girlfriend, or his wife actually, is just like, oh, that's okay, honey. It's okay. You're just still dealing with... There's no discussion. There's no conflict. It's just like, oh, I know how it is. Those...
you're just still horny and selfish, but I'm so cool and good and nice that it's fine. It's fine. And also she's she's with other astral dudes, but she is so cool and good that she's not having sex with them, even though Shane is doing whatever the fuck he pleases generally, because that's the ultimate fantasy, right? Is the lover that is well, it's okay if you can go and have sex with other people, but I just like you so much that I just don't want to.
Yeah, it's so good. Yep. And then I don't know. I think so. I don't know. It's so hard to rank the stupidest things in this book because they're all
it's Goblows so stupid.
For me. It's so for me. So yeah, it's pretty bad. So for me, it was the book transfer. So in all these astral planes, it seems like they can materialize almost anything at will. Like they talk about how people change their clothes by just like thinking about them, and it seems like you can have whatever you want, really, whatever kind of life. It's sort of like, oh, if you just imagine it, it exists. But for some reason, they can't imagine Niles MacFleur's book into the astral planes. So turns out Shane has to read it to Rebecca. Like, he has to be in the physical plane. They have to like mind meld. He has to read the book to her, and she has to transcribe it. And then when they're done, he just dies. So I don't get it. Why can't you just make the book appear? Like, you can make anything appear. Why can't the book appear? Also,
Niles isn't the one doing it, by the way. Niles, who supposedly can travel into the astral plane but doesn't for reasons. He's like, oh,
because it's bad for you.
I just haven't done it.
No, he's like, yeah, it's actually bad for you, but I don't know. You guys are special, so you can do it. That's a whole other like confusing element to this. And it really just feels like this entire like Rebecca and Shane getting together was really just so that Niles could get his book to the astral plane so he could be famous and get people to... Because, like, it ends with him doing tours of the astral planes and people being like, oh, yeah, we finally got your book, man. This is so great. So this really was just a ruse to get his book to the astral plane, it feels like. Doesn't it?
The whole thing feels like a giant ruse on all of us, Paris. Although I can't, like... I mentioned at the top that there was probably like a second component besides Niles just thinking that teaching is just spewing words out onto a page, and if you read it, then you'll be enlightened. I think the second component really is like the Nigerian prince scam style thing, where like if the immediate bad grammar and nonsense explanations don't deter you and you just keep going for it, you're the type of person that will join Niles MacFleur's property flippers and foot washcloth sellers ahoy spiritual group or whatever.
I just can't get over... I forgot about, like, the rapes, the casual rape, the casual racism, the casual, like, anti-Palestinian sentiment. It's got everything. It's, like, every shitty idea, racist thought, misogynist thought, it's all in here. It's just really emptying out the
package,
book
Paris.
fridge. Yeah, it's like...
Really? You know what, guys? If you want just, like, one terrible book to read as an example of all the stuff that Paris and I have been talking about this whole entire time, here it is. I mean, it's got a little bit of the woo-woo in there from, like, previous book. We did another, like, How to Fuck is a Ghost book before. It's got a little bit of that. Do
you remember the author found that video and was like, LOL, yeah, you guys are right. This is actually pretty funny and stupid. And I was like, wow, thanks.
Yeah, cool. It's got a little bit of like your Eclipse of Darkness style, like spiritual mapping nonsense happening in there. It's got a lot of the awkward, stilted, like non-dialogue people are aliens thing from like The Woman You Marry, or what was that one about like Chicago game? I'm living but I'm not alive.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, Kundalini Sex Force came back.
Kundalini Sex Force does show up in this one. The greatest hits.
Kundalini
I even remember the song I had in my head. Kundalini Sex Force. Like that's.
Oh, and Oversouls were from, I think, the Dead Pets
are
book.
Up in here?
I think that was from the Dead Pets book. I don't remember. Kundalini Sex Force was in something. I don't remember what.
Yeah, I think it was a bad thing from... Was it in Genesis Diet?
Yes,
it was in Genesis Diet, I think.
Yes, it was in Genesis Diet. I mean, you've got all these like sex tropes and romance tropes. Yeah, it's kind of... I mean, I still feel like... Eclipse of Darkness is the terrible book. I don't know if anything will eclipse that. But this is like Eclipse of Darkness's cousin. Like this is
this is more religious cousin. Like I mean that was a religious too, but it was more about like that was
more
like,
Christian than anything.
Yeah, this is like his like well I'm kind of Christian, but like also like a Buddhism is cool too, I guess.
Yeah.
What's missing here, Paris? What could have made this the complete terrible book package? Like,
I mean, we forgot to tell everyone it even has dogs turning into dog children. I think their idea is that as dogs develop their consciousness in the astral plane, they become human children. I think we were being told that by the end, and I was just like, what the why?
They just kind of talk, in sort of like, Flim love Niles, or Flim love Shane and Rebecca. Flim want to go where they are. I don't like where I am now, like that kind of thing.
But then they start developing secondary dog children, like secondary child characteristics. Like they start having dog child faces and stuff. It's really
like
fucking weird.
Voyeur dog that was like, wow, you
dog.
guys, that was the best fucking I ever saw. I saw the whole thing, and I've watched a lot of fucking, let me tell you, because I'm a perv dog hanging out in the 4th astral subplane. They let me in here. I don't know how trust me, I should have been on the 8th one or whatever. Here I am.
Snuck in. You've got.
They forgot to lock the doggy door up in here.
Oh my God, you're okay. I just have all these little weird. Sorry, this is less of a review and more just a recounting of like we started the episode
There's
with like
no way.
This is terrible. Here are all the things that happened in this book.
There's no way, Paris, that we could have done a thorough.
Okay. So when Shane and Rebecca, when they're both still alive, get married, they're like, we took our honeymoon to Atlantis and Lemuria, and I was like, what? Atlantis and Lemuria? What are you talking about? So there's it's even got Atlantis in it. To your point about it really being a little bit of everything. I don't remember. What the fuck is Lemuria?
I mean, probably some other, it's like Technosia or Timonia, or, I mean, he really just puts Ia at the end of something to create a new city or place, I feel like.
Apparently it's a Therion album. I don't remember that happening.
Sick.
The Lemuria, the fabled lost continent that turned out to be almost real.
Nah, I think that's enough. We don't need to go deeper into that, Paris.
Yeah, I mean,
it's more bullshit.
It's not too weird to talk about previous continents because, as I'm sure you all are aware, like the Earth has shifting plates and stuff, and over the long game, land moves around. Some of it goes under the water, some of it comes up. Some of it gets broken off or added back together. So our continents and whatever, and islands have had various shapes. So it's not crazy.
We play tectonics on this episode.
Yeah, it's not crazy to be like, oh yeah, this continent might have existed for these reasons, but like they wanted to go to a honeymoon to Atlantis and Lemuria.
Okay, I'm going on my honeymoon. It's really special. Can you like fuse all the continents back together for us? I mean, she would really love it if you were just able to make all the land masses one, and there, because she's like afraid of water.
That's Pangea.
So I don't,
So, that's not Lemuria. I guess that's the consolation prize. The best we can do is shove them all back together again. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, fine. I guess if that's what's available, I'll go to Atlantis too.
And like Atlantis, I don't know. I don't remember where Atlantis was supposed to be in, all of the mentions of it. I forget if it was in the Atlantic or the Pacific or some other ocean. Anyway,
it's fine.
Point being, I don't understand. It's just like I don't understand where they were trying to go for their honeymoon. Is my whole point. Like I have no idea where you're trying to go.
I need some tethering to like at least a geographic location so I can make sense of this.
Yeah, it's just.
My favorite thing is like after like they're doing like a co-honeymoon because Craig got married to his
girlfriend,
Michelle too.
I forgot about the co-honeymoon.
And then like one of the mornings after, like they're all having, I guess, coffee in like the Atlantis hotel room lobby or something like that.
Yeah.
And Shane and Rebecca come down and they start going like, wow, we had such an incredible evening last night. Let me recount in graphic detail, although it doesn't go into graphic detail in the book, about what's happening. And I imagine like there was a sentence that was like, and then we recounted everything that happened last night. And I imagine in my head the next sentence should be, everybody threw up. And like why would you go on a co-honeymoon with your friend, come downstairs in the morning and be like, yeah, this is what we got up to last night, guys?
Well, I mean, you're already on a co-honeymoon. To me, those two, that follows. Like, you're already on a fucking co-honeymoon. You're probably a weirdo who's like, let's talk about the honeymoon sex we had together the next morning. It just seems to fit to me, really.
Fair enough. Fair point, Paris.
So I don't think Shane or Rebecca are real. Obviously, I don't believe any of this like astral travel stuff, at least in the way that it's described in this book.
Oh, come on, man.
I don't buy it. Especially, the way it's described in this book is like, it's just, who would believe this? Who is getting recruited by this book? Who are you? Who reads this book?
Well, you know what, Paris?
Like,
I'll tell you, I did a little Googling about Niles MacFlouer after this, and it seems like the Ageless Wisdom website is down and he hasn't updated his podcast in a while, so my hope is he got fucking sucked off to the Shadow Realm by all that astral travel.
Yeah, I also tried to find him. I mean, I saw that there was some podcast he was doing, but I think it hadn't been updated in like 3
So my
years.
guess is it didn't fucking work, turns out, Paris. Turns out he can't even do a cult right.
I don't know.
He just sold more foot-shaped washcloths.
We don't know. Maybe they still got a compound. But I mean, it's all self-referential. It's just like, if you search Niles MacFlouer, you only see Niles MacFlouer talking about Niles MacFlouer. There's no, like, I think I ought to share this because it's funny. I searched Niles MacFlouer just to make sure I was remembering correctly from the other day when I did this before, and there, like, 3/4 of the way down the Google search page, there is a Reddit post saying, "Is it possible to kill Griffith in R Berserk?" And the text that matched was source Life's Hidden Meaning by Niles MacFlouer. I'm gonna open that Reddit post.
What the fuck?
What is this Berserk Niles MacFlouer crossover happening?
What? He's the demon at the end of Berserk when they all go into the Hell Realm. That's like really like the 8th astral plane, but Niles MacFlouer is that like titty demon that like traps them or whatever.
Okay, so if you haven't seen Berserk, I guess spoilers for Berserk. Is it possible to kill Griffith? Hello, strugglers. I saw a lot of people speculating that Guts will kill the Moonlight Boy to kill Griffith, but wouldn't he just lose his vessel and still exist in the astral plane? And then we've got some answers. Where's our winner? Astral Dark Masters, in this case, God Hand members, exist in astral bodies that are highly crystallized by the astral energy released by deaths of their victims. Astral bodies are killable and not immortal. The oldest Dark Master at this time is about 450,000 astral years old. That's around 150,000 physical plane years. There's that math again. Usually at an astral age of 500,000, their astral body cracks and they die, though that process can be hastened by a weapon modified with astral energy, such as the Behelit sword wielded by Skull Knight. I believe Guts' Dragon Slayer is also astrally modified to a degree by the sheer amount of demons it has killed, hence the dark aura around it. I think Femto could be killed by either Skull Knight wielding the Behelit sword or Guts with the Dragon Slayer, even if Femto was in his astral body and his physical incarnation was destroyed. Another user says, "Wait, I'm curious where you're getting this information. I was under the impression the God Hand were replaceable as evidenced with the Skull Knight flashback in one of the recent chapters, but not any specifics." The original poster says, "Source, Life's Hidden Meaning by Niles MacFlouer, page 463 to 438.
Paris, this is the greatest anime crossover of all time. Niles
It really is.
MacFlouer.
It really is.
It crosses over with
Really is.
This is like a weeb that also is into like the Niles MacFlouer Ageless Wisdom thing. That is a specific person there, Paris.
Oh man, you know what else I'm
Top
seeing?
10 anime
is,
crossovers.
Yeah, that's wild. The other thing I'm seeing is Niles MacFlouer saying that he is a physicist.
The metaphysicist is what
which
he says,
is
I think.
Interesting because a physicist is
It says on the back of this book
different.
that he has taught metaphysics, so I'm wondering if he just like dropped the meta at some point to try and seem more credible.
Yeah, to obscure the fact that he's actually a hack and has no credibility. Yeah.
Just ask him to do like force times velocity squared or whatever that formula is.
He's got one better for you, Chris.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's got a better formula. So, oh my god, this is on ResearchGate. Holy shit. Hang on. All right, so on ResearchGate, somehow there is a book or article, Possibilities That Are You, Volume 5, Truth and Context by Alex Bennett. And somehow our buddy is in here. Shit, I'm not downloading this PDF. Anyway, it says... Physicist Niles MacFlouer forwards that the total value of truth, T, minus the value of untruth, U, equals force, F. Here's what that looks like in a mathematical equation. T minus U equals F, or T minus small t to the 1 plus small t to the 2 plus small t to the 3, etc. equals F. Truth has value. Untruth reduces the ability of thought to control energy, so thinking becomes more difficult. Exposure to untruth reduces the structure of our thinking, reduces our senses. The greater our exposure to untruth, the lower our ability to sense those untruths. An example is the continuous pattering of a politician. When people become used to untruth, they are not in a position to hear truth. That is, they cannot discern it. I mean, yeah, I agree with the sentiment that, like, if you steep yourself in lies, it becomes difficult to retether yourself to reality. But that formula isn't a formula. You're not putting values where those, like...
No, I can quantify truth,
are.
Paris.
Yeah.
All right, Paris, at this point, like, do we really need to read anything else from this? Is there anything specific that we need to make sure everyone knows about?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, you could just do the fun page 303. What the fuck is this dude talking about? Let's just do one last one before we
Sure.
Let's put this thing in an early grave.
Oh God, this is like unindented paragraph. The whole page. It's just there's no indent whatsoever.
I believe in you.
I am not too sure it is all the same thing, Shane. Please tell me what it was like. All right, but it may be a little depressing for you. That's okay. Please, Jacob, continue if it does not bother you too much to do so. These past events are no more than pages that I read about myself in a book. If it helps others, including you, then for your sake I will recall them. In the winter of 1939, I was forcibly imprisoned in a Nazi concentration camp. I was a very young rabbi of just 21 years of age, very soon to be 22 if I lived that long. The German government was still accepting a fairly large sum of money to release certain Jews. A Jewish organization from the US had raised enough money to release a few, and because I was a young rabbi, I was one of those chosen. A few weeks afterward, the policy was abandoned by the Nazis, and I may have been the last one saved through it. Because the political climate had turned so hostile against Jews, instead of my being sent to the US, I was sent to Shanghai, China, where the Japanese, who were then allies with Germany, had already defeated China. I was imprisoned there in a camp made from a ghetto of the city. There were 25,000 mostly Jews already interned there. I was one of 2 active rabbis I knew of in the camp. I was a prisoner of the Japanese until the end of World War II, which was August of 1945. However, the camp was not liberated until the spring of 1947 because no one knew about it directly after the war. Then you were in prison from 1939 to 1947? Yes, that is correct, Shane. That's over 8 years. How did you survive? I nearly did not. The last 6 months of the war, the Japanese were building a gas chamber using Nazi plans and specifications. It was due to go into operation September 1945. Fortunately, the war ended just 1 month before that. The living conditions of the camp were pretty terrible, but I gave to others during the time I was there, and I believe it was that service that kept me alive. Please explain, Jacob, the paragraph ends. And then there's a whole other unindented paragraph on the next page that we're not going to read here. Really, the point of that passage is that, yeah, even Hitler gets up in here, man. It's the whole thing, everything that you could possibly need.
The reason I think I made a note about it was because I was like, what are you talking about? Because was he talking about a Japanese concentration camp in China?
After the war was done.
But that he was sent to after escaping a German concentration camp?
He was freed from a German concentration camp because someone paid money to free him.
Right.
And then was sent to China where there was a Japanese concentration camp instead.
Does that track? I don't think it tracks. It sounds absurd. I don't think they would. Could you really bribe yourself out of a concentration camp? I don't think so.
I think someone else, another government paid for release of some Jews.
Okay. I see what you're saying. So it was like a group effort, not like a singular person. In any case, I was also just confused by the timeline. It was like there was a concentration camp in China that Japan ran. I know those existed, but I think the
there are definitely
timeline...
concentration camps in China during the war, but after the war ended, they were mostly freed. So, like, when the Japanese surrendered, it wasn't anything continuing after that.
Yeah, again, just needlessly confusing.
But it's just more bullshit on top. Just like, no,
that's more bullshit.
You're just making something up for like a paragraph about this one guy in your book that's not even like a central character. It's just, it has more of that like, well, I know the real stuff that happened, right? Like,
yeah,
it's there for that.
You know, even if I was trying to recruit people into my cult with a book, this is not how I would do it, right? It's not convincing. It doesn't
matter what subject is, like, nothing is off topic here. You got to bring in like anything possible here. All right, Paris. Can we fix it?
I don't know, Chris. Can we fix it?
No. Throw the shit in the trash. This is rotten from the start. There is nothing to fix here. There's nothing. I know I'm usually the one that's like, well, maybe there's some artistic value in something or a learning experience. There's no reason for this. Burn them all. Burn them all.
Yeah. I don't think Niles is working through anything. I don't think this helped him in any way. It's not compelling. It's written poorly. Like you said, the core idea is rotten, to try to convince people to join your potential cult. The only way I could see...
Foot washing and property flipping astral travel LLC 2.
Yes. Yes. Honestly, the only way this book could be sort of redeemed is if you made it into a romance novel about astral sex, because there's at least a market for that. Like, if you wanted to really lean into that part of it, I think some people would purchase it, and it would be a smut read. I'm sure that audience exists. But as it stands, like, no one needs a 365-page ad for a cult, because it doesn't even like dangle or promise anything. And there's so many barriers to get through it that, like, who is getting recruited by this? The world would not be different. Like, if this book was, if we did indeed burn them all, I think we might be better off for it.
All right. Well, then, I'm going to just leave us with one last paragraph here.
Okay, take it away.
We then flew to the top of the highest mountain around us. There were wildflowers and dozens of unique colors everywhere covering the top. We flew naked still slowly through these flowers, barely a foot above the ground, enraptured by each other's warmth and gentleness. Rebecca put her body over mine, her back on top of my front with our arms outstretched, hands entwined, looking up at the sky as we floated for many miles this way. Feeling as part of our surroundings. Hundreds of butterflies surrounded us, covering our body outlines and gently moving their wings, barely touching us as we slowly made love in this position. The experience was delicious. Rebecca above me, the flower petals just touching me or her as we rotated at times, and the wings of the butterflies touching both of us as one. She, me, and I, her. So even the sex in here is fucking stupid. It's just... And then there was butterflies, and we all danced around them. Who's turned on by that?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's just so much of this that's really silly. Oh, you forgot about hokey pokey sex.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, let's do a little bit of that just to show you that I'm not cherry picking here. This is the normal stance of what is happening in here. Mm-hmm. Okay. I now rushed to get ready because Rebecca was on her way home. I arrived at her door and there was a note on it. For Shane only. Come in. I walked in and there were single daisies in little vases, and under each a note. The first of these notes said, remove your left shoe. The next, take off your left pant leg and sock. Next, remove your right arm from your shirt. Next, pull your underwear down to your knees. I was now standing in front of her closed bedroom door. A note slid from under the door. I picked it up and read, only those who look like humble fools may enter paradise. I opened the door and there she was in a negligee and super sexy. Well, it was hot, and so was I. She moved in a sexy dance while she smiled and looked at me with love and desire. So even as an astral sex smut book, Paris, it ain't working either, because that, like you said, that hokey pokey shit. Take your left shoe off and put your right arm out of your shirt. Turn around and be a humble fool, because you can enter paradise.
Yeah. No, I meant if it was like reworked into that, not as it is. We also, we forgot to tell people that this was supposedly Shane's journal that is being recounted. I forgot that critical detail.
It's not really that critical.
No, that was a joke. In any case, so
I'm done. Let's go, man. This was the most painful read in a while, and like when you were recounting your reading it to me, I was like, can't be that bad. We've done this before. Come on, we're seasoned vets. And then it began for me, and like I said, I've traveled through the floor of the earth in my astral body, and I'm just shooting out into the rest of the universe, hoping one day to become retethered into a world or a planet where a man like this doesn't exist.
Yeah, this was. I would rather read The Wives 5 more times. That was a hard one to read for different reasons. This was pure, unadulterated Cereblo essence. Yeah. All right, Chris. Well, I'll see you in the astral planes next time.
Wait, hold on. We got to thank the patrons and thank Charlotte for bestowing this suffering upon us.
Charlotte, this was, if Terrible hasn't blessed you this day, then surely it will happen soon because you've chosen.
You did the good karma, and your fifth cosmic ray is now in tune with Terriblo's third aspect of his mind, so you'll be able to astrally ascend and have a up conscious where the number big, and everything will go good for you all the time. Just like our patrons who do that for us. So thank you, patrons. Thank you to Greg, Veronica, Will, D, Jared, Arant, Senia, Jakub, Lycoris, Elliot, Kieran, Martin, Luchek, Miri, Yanka, David, Anya, Patricia, Austin, Donnie, Crimson, Paladin, Beast with Elise, Scott H, Robin, Laxtotes of the Void, the Taco-Eating Unicorn, Last Man on Earth 01, Funny Robot with Antennas, Hobbyboy93, Harry Renee, Emmy, and our newest patron, Julius the Nice Dragon. Thank God he's nice. And our Ko-fi donor, Kiwi Thing. Thank you so much. All right, Paris, I'm off to the 7th subplane to pet a dog and then do weird sex stuff in a tentacle hot tub, I guess.
Oh, yeah, I think you got to go up to like the 3rd or 4th plane for that, but that's okay. I'll see you later.
All right, bye, Paris.
Bye, Chris.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Terrible Book Club. Terrible Book Club is an independent podcast produced by your hosts, Paris and Chris. Sound design and audio editing by Chris, with sound effects and music by Epidemic Sound and sometimes also Chris. Our theme song is Kiss by Yearn, which is, you guessed it, actually also Chris. You can find more of his soothing synthy sounds on Bandcamp at yearn.bandcamp.com. Do you want us to review a book of your choice on the show? Do you want access to some extra audiovisual weirdness? If so, become a patron at patreon.com/terriblebookclub. If you'd like to send us a one-time tip instead, you can do that at ko-fi.com/terriblebookclub. You can also support TBC for free by sharing the show on social media, following our accounts on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or Goodreads, telling your friends about your favorite episode, or by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, or anywhere else on the internet. To send us book recommendations or your adorable pet photos, send an email to terriblebookclub@gmail.com.